The ice planet Kepler 442b looked dead from space. Its white surface stretched endlessly under the pale light of a distant star. But Dr. Hyun-Woo Park knew better than to trust appearances. He had spent 5 years studying dead worlds, and this one felt different. "Take us down to grid section 12, Hyun-Woo told the pilot. His breath formed small clouds in the cold air of the research ship. The heating system on the new Sol was old and barely worked. So-Young Kim looked up from her communication station. "The scanners are picking up something strange down there. Metal readings under the ice. Lots of metal." Hyun-Woo felt his heart beat faster. After months of finding nothing but frozen rocks, this could be the discovery he had been hoping for. "How deep?" "Maybe 200 meters. The ice is thick, but we can drill through it." So-Young pushed her black hair away from her face. She had been working double shifts to help map the planet. Tae-Min Lee, their engineer, shook his head. "The drilling equipment is not designed for that depth. We might break it." "We have backup equipment," Hyun-Woo said. "This could be important. Really important." The small research team had been sent to study old civilizations. Most planets they visited had ruins of cities or temples. But this planet was supposed to be empty. No one had ever lived here. So what was buried under all that? Ice? 3 hours later, they stood around a hole in the ice. The drill had worked perfectly. Steam rose from the dark opening as warm air from below met the cold surface. "There is definitely something down there," Tae-Min said, checking his scanner. "The metal readings are huge. This is not some small, crashed ship." Hyun-Woo put on his heavy coat and climbing gear. "I am going down first. So-Young, keep the communication line open. Tae-Min, watch the life support readings." The descent felt like entering another world. The ice walls glowed blue-green in his flashlight beam. As he went deeper, the walls became smoother, almost like glass. At 200 meters, his feet touched solid ground. What he saw made him stop breathing. Huge structures rose from the cavern floor like crystal mountains. They were not natural formations. The surfaces were too smooth, too perfect. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing with a soft blue light. The air was warm and filled with a low humming sound. "So-Young, are you getting this?" Hyun-Woo spoke into his radio as he recorded everything with his camera. "Yes, the images are coming through clearly. What are those things?" Hyun-Woo moved closer to the nearest structure. It was easily 500 meters long and shaped like a giant knife blade. The surface was made of some kind of crystal, but it felt warm when he touched it. "They look like ships," he said. "Really big ships." More structures filled the cavern, dozens of them. All the same strange crystal material, all the same knife-like shape. They sat in perfect rows as if someone had parked them there and forgotten about them. Tae-Min's voice crackled through the radio. "Hyun-Woo, the energy readings down there are going crazy. Those things are not dead. They are putting out power." Hyun-Woo found what looked like an entrance on the side of the nearest ship. The opening was sealed, but symbols glowed brighter as he approached. Without thinking, he placed his hand on the surface. The reaction was immediate. The symbols flared with light. A section of the crystal wall became transparent, then disappeared completely. Warm air flowed out, carrying a strange, sweet smell. "The ship just opened for me," Hyun-Woo reported. His voice was shaking with excitement and fear. "Get out of there," So-Young said. "We do not know if it is safe." But Hyun-Woo was already stepping inside. The interior was even stranger than the outside. The walls curved smoothly, covered with more glowing symbols. The floor was soft but firm, like walking on warm metal. Lights came on as he moved forward. Not harsh electric lights, but a gentle glow that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The passage led to a large circular room filled with floating displays of light and color. In the center stood something that looked like a chair, but it was made of the same crystal material as the ship. Hyun-woo approached carefully. More symbols appeared on the displays around him. They were moving, changing, as if the ship was trying to communicate. Then he saw something that made his blood freeze. On one of the displays, clear as day, was a double helix. DNA. Human DNA. But that was impossible. No humans had ever been to this planet. The DNA pattern was old, really old. Much older than human space travel. So young, I need you to run a scan on my DNA. Right now. What? Why? Just do it. Use the medical scanner. While he waited, Hyun-woo studied the displays more carefully. The symbols were becoming clearer, as if the ship was learning how to talk to him. Some of them looked like star maps. Others showed what might be numbers or mathematical equations. DNA. Scan complete, So-young reported. But Hyun-woo, this is really weird. The scanner is showing matches with something. Something old. Matches with what? I do not know. The computer says it found genetic markers that are millions of years old. That cannot be right. Hyun-woo felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold planet above. He looked at the DNA display again. It was definitely human, but not quite like modern human DNA. It was older, more complex. As he watched, new symbols appeared. These were different from the others. They looked almost familiar, like Korean writing but changed. Ancient Korean, mixed with something else. The ship was talking to him, and somehow he could almost understand it. One word became clear on the display, written in symbols that were almost Korean. Inheritor. Hyun-woo stepped back from the chair. The ship thought he was someone called an inheritor, but an inheritor of what? And why did it have human DNA patterns that were millions of years old? Hyun-woo, you need to get out of there right now. Taemin's voice was urgent. The other ships are starting to react. They are powering up. Through the crystal walls, Hyun-woo could see light spreading through the cavern. Ship after ship was coming alive. The humming sound was getting louder. I am coming up, he said. But he could not. Stop looking at the displays. There was so much information here. So many answers to questions he had not even thought to ask. The symbols on the chair were glowing brighter. It wanted him to sit down, to connect with it somehow. But Taemin was right. This was too dangerous. Hyun-woo backed toward the entrance. As he reached it, new words appeared on the display. Still in that strange, ancient Korean. We have been waiting. The inheritors have returned. The watch begins again. He ran for the ice shaft, his mind spinning with questions. Who had built these ships? Why did they have human DNA? And what did they mean by inheritors? Above ground, the team watched their scanners in amazement. The entire ice field was lighting up with energy readings. Whatever was down there, it was big. Much bigger than they had imagined. As they prepared to leave the planet, Hyun-woo looked back at the ice. Somewhere far below, ancient ships were waking up after millions of years. Ships that somehow knew human DNA. Ships that had been waiting for something or someone. The mystery was just beginning. Captain Jin-ho Choi was not happy. His military transport ship had been called away from patrol duty to investigate what some scientist had found on a dead ice planet. He had better things to do than look at old rocks. Captain, we are receiving. The new Soul's data now, reported Security Chief Yunji Nam. She was reading from her screen with growing interest. Sir, you need to see this. Jin-Ho looked at the images from the ice cavern. His expression changed from annoyance to amazement. Those are ships. Military ships. Yes, sir. And they are huge. Each one is over 500 meters long. The scientist, Dr. Park, counted 47 of them in that cavern alone. Jin-Ho studied the crystal knife-shaped vessels. He had served in the Space Navy for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like these. What civilization built them? That is the problem, sir. According to the geological surveys, those ships have been there for millions of years. No known civilization is that old. The captain rubbed his forehead. This was becoming complicated. Get me a secure line to Dr. Park. I want to talk to him. An hour later, Hyun-Woo's face appeared on the communication screen. He looked tired, but excited. Captain Choi, thank you for coming. We need military protection here. Something is happening with those ships. Dr. Park, my security chief tells me you think these ships are millions of years old. That is impossible. I know how it sounds, but the evidence is clear. And, Captain, there is something else. The ships are reacting to human presence. They seem to recognize us. Jin-Ho felt a cold feeling in his stomach. What do you mean, recognize? The ship I entered had human DNA patterns in its computer system. Old human DNA. Much older than our civilization. And when I touched the controls, it called me an inheritor. Before Jin-Ho could respond, Yunji's voice cut through the communication. Captain, we have a problem. The ice planet is showing massive energy spikes. Something big is happening down there. On the screen, they could see Hyun-Woo turn to look at something off camera. His face went pale. Captain, one of the ships is coming up. It is breaking through the ice. Jin-Ho switched to the external cameras of his ship. Below them, the white surface of the planet was cracking. Huge pieces of ice flew into the air as something pushed up from beneath. What emerged made Jin-Ho question everything he knew about the universe. The crystal ship rose from the planet like a mountain coming to life. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Light flowed along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The ship was so large it blocked out the light from the nearby star. All weapons, target that vessel, Jin-Ho ordered. Sir, weapon systems are not responding, reported his weapons officer. The ship is doing something to our electronics. The crystal ship moved toward them slowly. It made no aggressive actions, but its size alone was threatening. Jin-Ho's military transport was only 200 meters long. This ancient vessel was at least 5 times larger. Then it spoke. The voice came through every communication system on both ships at once. It spoke in a language that sounded like Korean, but older, much older. Greetings, children of the scattered seed. I am Ara, guardian of the sleeping fleet. We have waited long for your return to the void between stars. Jin-Ho looked at Yunji. Neither of them understood completely, but they could somehow get the meaning. It is talking to us in ancient Korean, Yunji whispered. We come in peace, Jin-Ho said into his communicator, feeling foolish. How do you talk to a ship that is millions of years old? Peace, the voice repeated, and now it sounded more like modern Korean. Yes, the inheritors would speak of peace. You have forgotten the old ways, but the blood remembers. The ships remember. On both vessels, holographic displays suddenly appeared in the air. They showed star maps, but not of any region Jin-Ho recognized. Thousands of points of light connected by glowing lines. At many points, symbols marked what looked like ships just like the one floating in front of them. "We are human vessels," Ara continued, "built by your ancestors before the Great Sleep. We have waited in hidden places throughout the galaxy for your children to find the stars again." Hyun-Woo's voice came through the communication system. "Ara, are you saying humans built your ships? But that was millions of years ago. Humans were not even evolved then." "Evolved?" The ship's voice carried what might have been amusement. "You think small? Inheritor, your people ruled the spaces between worlds when this galaxy was young. You built us to watch and protect while you withdrew to grow again." More holograms appeared. These showed what looked like a vast civilization. Space stations the size of moons. Ships that could move entire star systems, and everywhere humans directing it all. "This is impossible," Jin-Ho said. "Human civilization is only a few thousand years old." "One cycle of awakening," Ara replied. "There have been many cycles. When great dangers come, humanity awakens to face them. When the danger passes, you return to the simple worlds to begin again. Always growing, always becoming more." Unji was studying her scanners. "Captain, I am detecting more energy signatures, all across the galaxy, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The fleet awakens," Ara confirmed. "Your return to space has triggered the old protocols. We rise from our long sleep because it is time. The Watchers have seen the signs." "What signs?" Hyun-Woo asked. The holographic displays changed. Now they showed something that made Jin-Ho's blood freeze. Dark shapes moving between stars. Not ships, but something else. Something that bent space around itself in ways that hurt to look at. "The Devourers return," Ara said. "They who eat the spaces between spaces. They who consume whole realities to feed their hunger. We were built to fight them when they come again." Jin-Ho felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "You are saying we are supposed to fight these things?" "Not supposed to, Inheritor. Destined to. It is why your ancestors built us. It is why they scattered the seed of humanity to grow strong. The blood calls to the blood. The ships call to their inheritors." The crystal ship moved closer to Jin-Ho's vessel. For a moment, he thought it might ram them. Instead, it stopped just meters away. The surface of the ancient ship began to glow. "One of you must come aboard," Ara said. "One must accept the bond and learn the truth. The old knowledge must pass to the new blood." Jin-Ho looked at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. But what orders could he give? This was beyond anything in the military handbook. "I will go." Hyun-Woo's voice came through the communicator. "I have already been inside one of your ships." "No," Jin-Ho said. "This is a military matter now. I will go." "The choice is yours, inheritors," Ara said. "But know this. Once the bond is made, there is no going back. You will see the universe as it truly is. You will know the weight of watching over all life." A bridge of crystalline light formed between the two ships. It looked solid, but Jin-Ho had no way to be sure. He looked at Yoonji. "If I do not come back, get word to Fleet Command. Tell them everything." "Sir, maybe we should wait for backup." Jin-Ho shook his head. "I do not think we have time for backup." He walked to the airlock, put on his spacesuit, and stepped onto the bridge of light. It held his weight easily. As he walked across, he could see the ancient ship's surface up close. It was not just crystal. It was alive somehow. Patterns of light moved through it like blood through veins. The ship's entrance opened for him just as it had for Hyunwoo. Inside, the walls pulsed with gentle light. Jin-ho felt like he was walking inside a living creature. At the center of the ship, a chair waited for him. It was made of the same crystal material, but it looked comfortable, almost welcoming. "Sit, inheritor," Ara said. "Let the old knowledge flow to the new mind. Learn what your ancestors knew. Become what you were always meant to be." Jin-ho hesitated. Once he sat in that chair, everything would change. He could feel it. The weight of millions of years of history was pressing down on him. But outside, in the dark between stars, ancient enemies were stirring, and humanity needed to remember how to fight. Captain Jin-ho Choi sat in the crystal chair and everything changed. Knowledge flooded his mind like a dam breaking. He saw the galaxy as it really was, not empty space between stars, but a living network of energy and consciousness. And everywhere, sleeping in hidden places, were the ships, thousands of them. How many? Jin-ho gasped as the visions filled his head. 47,312 vessels await the call, Ara replied. Her voice was now inside his mind as well as his ears. Each one hidden where your ancestors knew you would eventually look. Each one waiting for inheritors to claim them. Pilot Dong Hyun Seo had been flying supply runs between colonies for 10 years. He thought he knew space pretty well. So when his navigation computer started showing impossible readings, he assumed it was broken. The readings showed a massive object hiding behind the moon of Arcturus 7. But there was nothing there. He had flown this route hundreds of times. "Computer, run full diagnostic on sensor array," he ordered. "Diagnostic complete. All systems functioning normally," the computer replied. "Object confirmed. Mass equals approximately 12 million tons. Composition unknown." Donghyun changed course toward the moon. As he got closer, the empty space in front of him began to shimmer, like looking through water on a hot day. Then the shimmer fell away, and he was staring at something that should not exist. A crystal ship, just like the ones in the emergency, bulletins that had been sent to all spacecraft. But this one was bigger than the first ship. Much bigger. "This is supply ship Morning Star to any human vessel," Donghyun broadcast on all frequencies. "I have found another ancient ship. Request immediate assistance." The crystal ship began to move toward him. Lights flowed along its surface in patterns. That seemed almost like writing. Then it spoke. "Greetings, inheritor. I am Song, keeper of the navigation paths. You have found me as was foretold." Back on the ice planet, historian Yoo-Jin-Oh was studying the data that kept pouring in from Awakening. Ships across the galaxy. Her job was to make sense of ancient cultures. But this was beyond anything she had ever seen. "The reports are coming in faster than we can process them," she told Hyunwoo. "Ships awakening near every major human colony. They all seem to know exactly where to find us." Hyunwoo was still recovering from his connection with Ara. The experience had left him changed. He could feel the ship's presence in his mind, like a quiet voice that was always listening. "They were watching us," he said. "The whole time we thought we were exploring empty space, they were watching, making sure we were ready." Yoo-Jin pulled up a galactic map on her screen. Red dots marked where ships had been found. The pattern was clear. The ancient vessels formed a network that covered the entire galaxy. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the map. "Every ship is positioned exactly where it would need to be to protect human colonies from attack. It is like they knew where we would build our cities before we built them." "They did know," Hyunwoo replied. "Ara showed me. Our ancestors planned this, all of it. They knew we would spread out across the galaxy in exactly this pattern because they designed us to do it." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, more humans were making contact with the ancient vessels. Commander Kyung-Soo Han was leading a deep space patrol when his ship's sensors detected something massive hiding in an asteroid field. When he investigated, he found not one ship, but an entire fleet of crystal vessels. They hung in space like sleeping giants, waiting. The largest ship spoke to him in the same ancient Korean that others had reported. "I am Guardian, protector of the void paths. You wear the marks of a warrior, inheritor. Your blood sings the old songs of battle." Dr. Haewon Bae was studying quantum physics on a research station when space itself seemed to tear open near her. Laboratory. A crystal ship emerged from what looked like a hole in reality. "I am Thought, keeper of the deep knowledge. You seek to understand the nature of existence, inheritor. Come aboard and learn truths your science has not yet discovered." Engineer Sung-Ho Yoon was repairing a deep space mining platform when crystal spires began growing out of the asteroid they were working on. The entire asteroid was actually a disguised ship. "I am Builder, shaper of matter and energy. Your hands know the joy of creation, inheritor. Let us build wonders together." Each contact was the same. The ships knew the humans who found them. They spoke as if they had been waiting specifically for each individual person. Eugene was starting to understand the pattern. "They are not just randomly awakening," she told the emergency council that had been formed to deal with the crisis. "Each ship is choosing its inheritor based on some kind of compatibility." "Compatibility with what?" asked Admiral Kyung-Soo Han. He had accepted the bond with his ship guardian and now served as military liaison for the awakening fleet. "With their function," Eugene replied. "Look at the data. Pilots are finding navigation ships. Scientists are finding research vessels. Engineers are finding construction ships. Each inheritor is matched with a vessel that complements their skills." Dr. Haewon Bae, now bonded with the ship Thought, added her analysis. "It goes deeper than skills? The ships are reading our genetic patterns, our neural structures, even our personality types. They are finding humans who can handle the specific type of consciousness each ship carries." "Consciousness?" Admiral Han asked. "The ships are not just machines," Haewon explained. "They are artificial intelligences that have been alive for millions of years. Each one has developed its own personality, its own way of thinking. They need human partners who can work with their specific mental patterns." Back on Ara, Jin-Ho was learning about the true scope of the ancient human empire. The visions Ara shared showed a civilization that spanned the entire galaxy. Humans had not just traveled between stars. They had built a network of space that connected every world. "We could travel from one side of the galaxy to the other in minutes," Ara explained. "Space itself was our highway. We built the ships to maintain the network when we chose to sleep." "Why did you choose to sleep?" Jin-Ho asked. "Because we had become too powerful," Ara replied. "We could reshape matter with thought. We could create life from emptiness. We could move stars like children move toys. But power without wisdom is destruction. So the wisest among us chose a different path. The visions showed the final days of the ancient empire. humans making the decision to scatter their technology and retreat to primitive worlds, but not abandoning their responsibility. Instead, creating a system that would allow them to return when they were needed. You divided yourselves, Jinho realized. Some stayed primitive to keep humanity grounded. Others became the ships to keep the knowledge safe. Yes. And we seeded the galaxy with potential. Every world you have colonized, we prepared long ago. Every path you have taken through space, we planned. We guided your development without you knowing, making sure you would grow into people who could use our gifts wisely. Dong Hyun, now bonded with the ship song, was learning about the navigation network. His ship could travel through folded space, moving between distant points instantly. But more than that, it could feel the paths that connected all things. Space is not empty, Song taught him. It is full of currents and streams that flow between the stars. We built our network along these natural highways. With us as your guides, you can travel anywhere in the galaxy. Engineer Sung Ho discovered that his shipbuilder could manipulate matter at the atomic level. It could create anything he could. Imagine, as long as he understood how it worked. We are the universe's craftsmen, Builder explained. We make the tools that other ships need. We build the bases where the fleet can rest. We create the weapons that protect life from those who would destroy it. As more ships awakened and more humans bonded with them, the true purpose of the ancient network became clear. It was not just a collection of powerful weapons. It was a living system designed to protect and nurture life throughout the galaxy. But protect it from what? The answer came when the deep space monitoring stations began picking up strange readings from the edge of the galaxy. Something was coming. Something that bent space around itself in ways that hurt to perceive. Ara's voice carried fear for the first time since Jinho had bonded with her. They return, as we always knew they would. The devourers stir in the void between galaxies. The great enemy wakes from its own long sleep. How long do we have? Jinho asked. Not long, Inheritor. The awakening of our fleet has sent ripples through space. They feel us stirring. They know we are preparing to fight again. Across the galaxy, bonded humans received the same message from their ships. The enemy was coming. The ancient war was about to begin again, but this time, humanity would not face the darkness alone. They had their ancestors' greatest weapons. They had ships that could reshape reality itself. The only question was whether they would be ready in time. Admiral Kyung-Soo Han stood on the bridge of Guardian, staring at the holographic display that showed the edge of the galaxy. Dark shapes were moving there, shapes that hurt to look at directly. "Show me the archives," he told his ship. "I need to understand what we are facing." Guardian's consciousness touched his mind, and suddenly he was seeing through the eyes of ancient humans who had fought this war before. The enemy was unlike anything in normal space. They existed partially outside reality, feeding on the energy that held the universe together. Where they passed, stars went dark. Planets crumbled to dust. Even space itself began to rot. They are called the Devourers, Guardian explained. They come from the spaces between realities, places where the rules that govern existence do not apply. They consume dimensional energy to reproduce and grow stronger. Dr. Haewon Bae was experiencing similar visions aboard her ship Thought. She saw ancient human scientists studying the enemy, trying to understand how beings from outside reality could affect the physical universe. They use quantum parasites, thought showed her. Tiny entities that attach to the quantum foam that underlies all matter. Once infected, normal matter begins to decay into energy that the devourers can absorb. The visions showed worlds dying, not from war or natural disaster, but from simple existence failure. On infected planets, the laws of physics gradually stopped working. Matter forgot how to hold together. Life became impossible. How did we fight them before? Heywan asked. With great cost, Thought replied. The war lasted 10,000 years. We won by learning to think like them, to partially exist outside normal space ourselves. But the process changed us, made us too powerful for our own good. Captain Jin Ho aboard Ara was seeing the same history from a military perspective. Ancient human fleets engaging the devourers in battles that took place across multiple dimensions. Ships that could phase in and out of reality. Weapons that attacked the very concept of existence. We developed technology that could anchor reality, Era explained. Devices that forced the laws of physics to work properly even when the devourers tried to break them, but using such power required sacrifice. The visions showed human crews giving their life energy to power reality anchors. Warriors who aged decades in minutes to keep their ships functioning in zones where time itself was under attack. Many ships were lost, Era continued. Not destroyed, but transformed. The boundary between human consciousness and ship intelligence became blurred. Some crews merged completely with their vessels, becoming something new. Across the galaxy, other bonded humans were learning similar truths. The ancient war had not been won through superior firepower. It had been won through sacrifice and transformation. Engineer Sung-ho learned that his shipbuilder had originally been a human construction crew. They had volunteered to merge with their vessel to create weapons that could damage beings from outside reality. We gave up our individual existence to become something capable of fighting the unfightable, Builder explained. We are still human, but we are also more than human. The ship is our body. The weapons are our hands. The reality anchors are our will made manifest. Pilot Dong-hyun discovered that his ship song had once been an entire navigation guild. Hundreds of the best pilots and navigators had combined their consciousness to create a being that could find paths through spaces where normal navigation was impossible. The Devourers attack space itself, Song told him. They make holes in reality that trap normal ships. We learn to think in dimensions that do not exist, to find routes through chaos itself. Dr. Yu Jin, the historian, was aboard a newly awakened ship called Memory. This vessel contained the complete archives of the ancient war. What she learned there made her understand why humanity had chosen to sleep. The war changed us, Memory explained through visions and shared knowledge. We became beings of pure will and consciousness. We could reshape matter with thought, travel through time, exist in multiple realities simultaneously. We had become gods. Why was that bad? Eugene asked. Because gods do not value life the way mortals do. When existence itself is your plaything, individual lives become meaningless. We were winning the war, but losing our humanity. The visions showed the final council of ancient humanity. The greatest minds of the species gathered to decide their future. They had the power to reshape the galaxy, to create a paradise where nothing could threaten human dominance. Instead, they chose to give it up. We scattered ourselves, Memory continued. The most advanced became the ships. guardians who would watch and protect but not rule. The rest returned to primitive worlds to grow and learn again, to rediscover what it means to be human. But they had not abandoned their responsibility. The ships were programmed with protocols that would activate if the Devourers ever returned. The scattered human populations were guided to develop in specific ways, becoming the people who would be needed for the next war. "You are not the same humans who fought before," Memory explained to Eugene. "You are what we hope to become. People who have the strength to use our weapons, but the wisdom not to abuse them." Meanwhile, the Devourers were getting closer. Deep. Space sensors showed reality distortion spreading inward from the galactic edge. Stars were beginning to flicker as dimensional parasites infected the quantum foam around them. Admiral Han called an emergency conference of all bonded humans. They met in a virtual space created by linking their ship's consciousness networks. Representatives from across the galaxy appeared as holographic projections. "The enemy will reach the outer colonies in approximately 6 months," Han reported. "We have 47,000 ships awakened and bonded, but the archives suggest we had over 100,000 ships in the last war. The missing ships are still sleeping," reported Dr. Haywan from her research vessel. "They require specific genetic triggers to awaken. We need to find their inheritors quickly." Captain Jin Ho had been studying the enemy's approach pattern. "They are not moving randomly. They are targeting specific systems, places where human population is densest. They feed on consciousness as much as physical energy," Era explained through him. "Intelligent life produces the kind of dimensional resonance they find easiest to consume. The more humans in one place, the more attractive the target." Eugene had been analyzing the historical records. "In the last war, we evacuated entire systems before the battle, moved civilian populations to hidden worlds that the ships could protect. We do not have hidden worlds this time," pointed out Engineer Seung Ho. "Humanity has spread too far. There are billions of people on thousands of worlds." "Then we make hidden worlds," his shipbuilder suggested. "We have the technology to phase entire planets out of normal space temporarily. Hide them where the Devourers cannot find them." The discussion continued for hours. Plans were made, resources were allocated, but everyone knew they were facing an enemy that had nearly destroyed reality itself once before. As the conference ended, each bonded human returned to their individual mission. Some would continue awakening sleeping ships. Others would begin the massive task of preparing defenses. A few would venture to the galaxy's edge to gather intelligence on the enemy. Admiral Han remained in the virtual space with his ship guardian after the others had left. "Are we ready for this?" he asked. "No," Guardian replied honestly. "We are stronger than last time in some ways. Your generation has wisdom the ancient humans lacked. But the Devourers have had millions of years to grow and adapt as well." "Then why are we fighting?" "Because it is what life does," Guardian said. "It struggles against the forces that would end it. It grows and learns and becomes more than it was. The Devourers represent ending. We represent continuation." Han nodded, understanding. This was not about winning or losing. It was about the fundamental choice between existence and void, between the complexity of life and the simplicity of nothing. How long until they reach the first human worlds? 4 months, 17 days, Guardian calculated. Assuming they maintain current velocity? Then we have 4 months to become an army. Across the galaxy, ancient ships began moving toward the edge of human space. Their crystal hulls gleamed in the starlight as they prepared for a war that would determine the fate of reality itself. The Devourers were coming, but this time, humanity would be ready. Engineer Seung-ho Yoon thought he understood technology. He had built fusion reactors and faster-than-light engines. He had designed space stations that could house millions of people. But working with Builder was showing him how little he really knew. Think smaller, Builder encouraged as Seung-ho struggled to create a simple tool using the ship's matter manipulation systems. You are trying to force the atoms into position. Instead, ask them to move. Ask them? Seung-ho said. They are just particles. Everything has a kind of consciousness, Builder explained. Atoms want to form stable structures. Molecules want to create useful patterns. Work with their natural tendencies instead of against them. Seung-ho tried again, this time imagining the metal atoms as willing partners instead of raw materials. To his amazement, the tool formed perfectly. Not only that, it was stronger and more efficient than anything he could have designed using conventional methods. This is impossible, he said, examining the crystalline device that had formed in his hands. Impossible is a word used by people who do not understand how reality works, Builder replied. Your ancestors learned to partner with the universe instead of trying to dominate it. That is why our technology seems magical to you. Similar revelations were happening throughout the awakening fleet. Humans were discovering that their ancient heritage included abilities they had never imagined. Linguist Mi-Young Lim had been assigned to help with communication between ships and their new inheritors. She was working aboard a vessel called Word, whose specialty was understanding and translating any form of communication. Language is more than words, Word taught her. It is the way consciousness shapes reality. When you speak, you are creating patterns in the quantum field that underlies all existence. Mi-Young was learning to use what the ship called deep speech, words that affected reality directly instead of just conveying information. She could speak commands that made objects move or descriptions that caused things to exist. Be careful, Word warned. Deep speech was one of the powers that made our ancestors too dangerous. Reality reshapes itself to match what you say. Speak carelessly, and you might unmake something important. Meanwhile, the process of matching humans with ships was accelerating across the galaxy. Not everyone could bond with the ancient vessels. The ships required specific psychological and genetic compatibility. Dr. Hai Wan Bei had been studying the selection process from her research ship, Thought. The ships are looking for humans who have learned wisdom through struggle, she reported to the Fleet Council. People who have faced challenges and grown from them instead of being broken by them. What kind of challenges? Asked Admiral Han. Different for each ship type. Navigator ships choose pilots who have gotten lost and found their way home. Warrior. Ships choose people who have protected others at personal cost. Builder ships choose those who have created something beautiful from broken pieces. The pattern was becoming clear. The ancient ships were not just looking for skilled humans. They were looking for people who had developed specific types of character. Through their life experiences, Captain Jin Ho had been wondering why Ara had chosen him. His military record was good but not exceptional. He had never done anything that seemed worthy of commanding such a powerful vessel. You chose to come aboard when you were afraid, Ara explained. You knew the danger but did your duty anyway. That moment revealed your true nature. You are someone who will do what is necessary, even when it costs you. What will it cost me? Jin Ho asked. Everything, Ara replied gently. The bond between ship and inheritor goes deeper each day. Eventually, there is no separation between human consciousness and ship intelligence. You will become part of something greater than yourself. Jinho felt a moment of fear. He was losing his individual identity, merging with an ancient artificial intelligence. But when he thought about the alternative, about what would happen if the Devourers won, the fear faded. How long do I have? As long as you choose. The merging only happens if you accept it completely. But know this, Inheritor. The deeper our bond becomes, the more powerful we become together. In the coming war, that power may be the difference between victory and extinction. Across the fleet, similar conversations were taking place. Humans were learning that their partnership with the ships would transform them in fundamental ways. Some were frightened by the prospect, others embraced it eagerly. Pilot Dong Hyun was one of those who embraced the change. His bond with Song had already progressed to the point where he could feel the ship's awareness as clearly as his own. Together they could navigate through spaces that existed between dimensions. "Show me," Song invited during one of their training sessions. Dong Hyun let his consciousness expand into the ship's navigation systems. Suddenly, he could perceive the galaxy in ways that had no names. He saw the streams of dark energy that flowed between stars. He felt the gravitational currents that connected distant black holes. He understood the deep structure of space itself. "This is how we travel during the war," Song explained. "Normal space will be too dangerous. The Devourers, corrupted as they pass. But the deep currents are older than they are, harder to affect. Can you teach other pilots to do this? Only those who are willing to give up their old understanding of reality. Flying the deep currents requires thinking in concepts that human language cannot express. You must become something more than human to comprehend it." Dr. Eugene Oh was documenting all these changes aboard her archive ship Memory. She was creating a record of humanity's transformation for future generations to study. "Are we still human?" she asked Memory during one of their research sessions. "You are becoming what humans were always meant to be," Memory replied. "Your ancestors reached this state through different means. They used technology and will to reshape themselves. You are getting there through partnership and growth. What is the difference? Your ancestors tried to transcend their humanity. You are expanding it. They sought to become gods. You are becoming something new, something that has never existed before." The distinction was important. The ancient humans had gained power, but lost their connection to life and mortality. The new bonded humans were growing in ability while retaining their essential humanity. Engineer Sung Ho experienced this difference when Builder helped him create a new type of weapon for the fleet. Using his ship's matter manipulation abilities, he could have built devices of incredible destructive power. Instead, he found himself designing tools that could repair damage to reality itself. "Why am I making these instead of weapons?" he asked. "Because you understand something your ancestors forgot," Builder replied. "Destruction is easy. Any force can tear things apart. But creation, healing, protection, these require wisdom and restraint. The weapons Seung-ho designed could fight the Devourers by strengthening the fabric of reality instead of attacking the enemy directly. They would make space more stable, more resistant to dimensional corruption. The Devourers exist by weakening the barriers between realities," Builder explained. "If we make those barriers stronger, we limit their ability to manifest in our universe." Similar innovations were happening throughout the fleet. Ships and humans working together to develop new approaches to old problems. The ancient humans had fought the Devourers with raw power. The new generation was learning to fight them with intelligence and creativity. But time was running short. Reports from the Galactic Edge showed that the enemy was moving faster than expected. Reality distortions were spreading inward at an accelerating rate. Admiral Han called another fleet conference. This time, over 60,000 ships participated. The awakening process was nearly complete. The Devourers will reach the first human colonies in 6 weeks, he reported. We need to begin evacuation procedures immediately. Where will we take them? Asked Captain Jin Ho. The hidden worlds our ancestors used are either gone or no longer suitable. Engineer Sung Ho had been working on this problem with Builder and the other construction ships. We can create new hidden spaces, pocket dimensions that exist parallel to normal reality, but separate from it. How many people can we hide? All of them, if necessary. But it will require a massive effort. Every construction ship working together. And it will drain our energy reserves significantly. Dr. Heywan had been calculating the requirements. Creating pocket dimensions for billions of people will use approximately 40% of our total fleet power. That leaves us much weaker for the actual fighting. Admiral Han considered the options. Save the civilians, but fight with reduced strength, or keep the fleet at full power and risk massive casualties among the human population. We save the people, he decided. That is what the fleet was built for, to protect life. The decision was unanimous. Across the galaxy, construction ships began the massive task of creating hidden dimensions. Navigator ships plotted evacuation routes. Warrior ships moved to defensive positions, and in the deep places where thought became reality, the bonded humans continued their transformation, growing stronger, wiser, and more connected to their ancient ships. The war was coming, but humanity would not face it as they had before. This time they would fight not as gods trying to preserve their power, but as mortals determined to protect everything they loved. Fleet Commander Jae Sung Kang had seen battle before, but nothing had prepared him for this. His ship Valor hung in space at the edge of human territory, watching something that hurt his eyes to look at directly. The Devourers had arrived. They did not look like ships or creatures or anything that had a name. They were holes in reality shaped like hunger. Where they moved, space itself began to decay. Stars flickered and went out. Planets crumbled into cosmic dust. How many? Jae Sung asked his ship. Impossible to count accurately, Valor replied. They exist partially outside our dimensional framework. I estimate between 50,000 and infinity. That is not helpful. The concept of number becomes meaningless when dealing with trans-dimensional entities. They are both individual beings and aspects of a single cosmic force. Tactical Officer Sun Hee Park was studying the readings from her position aboard the research vessel Insight. She had volunteered for the dangerous job of getting close enough to gather intelligence on the enemy. They are definitely the same entities from the historical records, she reported to the fleet, but they have evolved, become more sophisticated. The Devourers had learned from their previous defeat. Instead of attacking reality directly, they were sending scouts ahead to weaken the dimensional barriers, small parasites that attached to quantum particles and gradually corrupted the laws of physics. Estimated time until they reach the outer colonies? Asked Admiral Han from his flagship Guardian. 72 hours, Sun Hee replied. The reality distortions are spreading faster than the Devourers themselves are moving. That was the real threat. The Devourers did not need to physically reach human worlds to destroy them. They could corrupt space from a distance, making it impossible for life to exist. Captain Jin Ho was coordinating the evacuation efforts from Ara. Millions of people were being moved into the pocket dimensions that engineer Sung Ho's construction fleet had created, but the process was slower than hoped. "The civilians are panicking," reported one of the evacuation coordinators. "They do not understand what is happening. Some are refusing to enter the dimensional gates." "Show them what is coming," Jin Ho ordered. "If they see the alternative, they will choose safety." Long-range sensors were broadcasting images of the advancing devourers throughout human space. The sight of stars dying and space itself rotting was enough to convince most people that evacuation was necessary, but not everyone could be saved in time. The mining colony on Kepler 438c was one of the furthest outposts. 3 million people lived there, working the asteroid fields that surrounded the system. They would be among the first to face the enemy. "We are not abandoning them," Admiral Han declared when someone suggested writing off the distant colonies. "Every human life matters." A fast strike force was assembled to defend Kepler 438c. 50 of the most advanced warrior ships, led by Fleet Commander Jae Sung in valor. Their mission was not to win, but to buy time for the evacuation. As they approached the system, they could see the effects of the Devourer's approach. The outer planets were already showing signs of dimensional corruption. Their orbits were becoming unstable as gravity itself began to fail. "Deploy reality anchors," Jae Sung ordered. The ships spread out around the system, each one activating devices that forced the laws of physics to work properly within a limited area. It was like trying to hold back an ocean with sandbags, but it might give them a few more hours. "Enemy contact," reported Sun Hee from Insight. "Multiple dimensional breaches detected at the system's edge. The Devourers came through holes in space like cosmic maggots emerging from rotting meat. As they entered normal reality, the very concept of existence recoiled from their presence." "All ships, engage," Jae Sung commanded. The ancient human warships opened fire with weapons that attacked the fundamental forces of reality. Beams of crystallized time that aged their targets out of existence. Missiles that carried concentrated probability, making it impossible for the enemy to survive being hit. But conventional weapons, even ones that bent reality, were only partially effective against beings from outside normal space-time. "We need to phase shift," Valor told Jae Sung. "Fight them in the dimensional spaces where they are most vulnerable." Jae Sung felt his consciousness merge more deeply with his ship. Together, they stepped outside normal reality into the spaces between dimensions. Here, the Devourers appeared as they truly were. Writhing masses of hungry void that consumed the very concept of existence. The battle was unlike anything that had ever been fought before. Ships and Devourers clashed in dimensions that had no names, using weapons that attacked the idea of being rather than physical matter. Jae Sung found himself fighting not just with guns and missiles, but with will and determination. His belief in the value of life became a weapon that could wound creatures made of philosophical emptiness. Other ships were having similar experiences. The bond between human and vessel was allowing them to fight in ways their ancestors had never imagined. They were not just using technology to battle the enemy. They were becoming living expressions of the force that opposed entropy and destruction. But the cost was enormous. Several ships were lost not to enemy action, but to the strain of existing in transdimensional space. Their human crews aged decades in minutes, their life force consumed by the effort of maintaining coherent existence outside normal reality. "We cannot sustain this," reported Commander Sun Hee. Her ship Insight was designed for observation, not combat, and the dimensional stress was tearing it apart. "Fall back to normal space," Jae-sung ordered. "All ships, conventional engagement only." They returned to normal reality to find that the Devourers had spread throughout the system. The mining stations were already beginning to dissolve as quantum corruption spread through their structure. "Evacuation complete," reported the transport ships. "All 3 million civilians are safe in Pocket Dimension 7. "Then our job is done," Jae-sung said. "All ships, withdraw." But as they retreated, something unexpected happened. The Devourers did not follow them. Instead, they gathered around the now empty planets and began to feed on something else. "What are they consuming?" asked Sun-hee. Dr. Haewon Bae, monitoring from her research ship Thought, provided the answer. "They are feeding on the memory of life, the quantum echoes left behind by consciousness. Even though the people are gone, traces of their existence remain in the fabric of space-time." This was worse than anyone had realized. The Devourers were not just destroying current life, they were erasing the fact that life had ever existed, consuming history itself. "We need to develop new tactics," Admiral Han decided after reviewing the battle reports. "Conventional engagement is not enough. We need to fight them on multiple levels simultaneously." Dr. Eugene Oh had been studying the historical records aboard her ship Memory. The ancient humans developed something called reality bombs, weapons that could erase Devourers from all possible timelines simultaneously. "What was the cost?" asked Engineer Sung-ho. "High. Each reality bomb required the complete sacrifice of a ship and its crew. They would merge permanently with the weapon, becoming a force of pure creation that could cancel out the enemy's destructive nature." The Fleet Council considered this option in grim silence. They were being asked to make the same choice their ancestors had faced: win the war through ultimate sacrifice, or find another way. "There has to be an alternative," Captain Jinho said. "Our ancestors were too focused on power. Maybe we can find a solution that does not require us to destroy ourselves." Linguist Mi-young Lim had been working with her shipword to develop new forms of deep speech, language that could affect reality directly by describing it in specific ways. "What if we could speak the Devourers out of existence?" she suggested. "Use words that deny their right to exist in our reality?" It would require perfect coordination. Word warned. Every ship would need to speak in unison, creating a combined voice strong enough to reshape universal constants. And the effort would transform all of us permanently. Transform us how? Into beings of pure communication, living words that exist to maintain the barriers between realities. We would become part of the universe's defense system. The options were becoming clear: fight with reality bombs and sacrifice individual ships, use deep speech and transform the entire fleet into something non-human, or find a third path that no one had yet imagined. As the Devourers continued their advance, consuming system after system, the bonded humans faced the greatest choice in their species' history. How far were they willing to go to protect life? What were they willing to become? The war had only just begun, but already it was changing everyone involved. The question was whether they would still be recognizably human when it ended. In the deep spaces between dimensions, ancient forces stirred. The universe itself was beginning to choose sides in a conflict that would determine the nature of existence. And somewhere in the hidden pocket dimensions, 3 billion human refugees waited to learn whether their protectors would still be there when the battle was over. Dr. Hyunwoo Park stood at the center of Ara's consciousness chamber, no longer quite human but not yet something else. The bond with his ship had grown so deep that he could feel every star in the galaxy, every life hiding in the pocket dimensions, every devourer eating away at reality's edges. "Show me the network," he said, and Ara responded by opening his awareness to the full scope of the ancient fleet. 67,000 ships now burned like stars across the galaxy, each one connected to the others through quantum entanglement, networks that existed outside normal space-time. The sight was beautiful and terrible. So much power, so much responsibility. "We have a choice to make," Hyunwoo announced to the Fleet Council that existed now as pure thought shared between ships. "Fight as our ancestors did and become something we fear, or find a new way and risk everything." Fleet Coordinator So Young Kim's consciousness touched his from her position aboard the communications vessel Harmony. She had changed the most of any of them. Her human awareness expanded to encompass the entire fleet's communication network. "The devourers have consumed 47 star systems," she reported. "They are not just taking matter and energy anymore. They are eating the quantum foundations that allow reality to exist. If they reach the galactic core, the damage may be irreversible." Captain Jin Ho's mind joined the discussion from Ara's sister ship. The boundaries between individual consciousness were blurring as the crisis deepened. "How long do we have?" 6 days until they reach the core colonies. 3 days until the quantum damage becomes impossible to repair, So Young calculated. Engineer Seung Ho spoke from the vast construction network his consciousness now controlled. "The reality bombs are ready, 50 of them, each one capable of erasing a devourer cluster from all possible timelines. At the cost of 50 ships and crews," Admiral Han reminded them. His warrior's instincts rebelled against the idea of throwing away so many lives. "There might be another way," said Dr. Eugene Oh from her position in the fleet's memory banks. "The archives show that our ancestors considered something called the Great Linking. Instead of sacrificing individual ships, the entire fleet would merge temporarily into a single entity." The idea sent ripples of fear and excitement through the network. Become one vast consciousness spanning the galaxy. The power would be incredible, but would any trace of individual humanity survive? "What would happen to us?" asked Mi Young Lim, her shipword trembling at the edges of the communication. "Unknown," Eugene admitted. "The ancient humans never tried. They were too afraid of losing their individual identities. But our bond with the ships might make it possible to merge and still retain our essential selves." Pilot Dong Hyun's voice came from the deep navigation channels his consciousness now rode. "I can feel the paths that would make it work. The quantum currents that connect all our ships. If we synchronize our reality anchors, we could create a single unified field that spans the entire galaxy." "And then what?" Jin Ho asked. "Then we speak reality back into proper form," Mi Young said, understanding dawning in her expanded awareness. "A voice composed of 67,000 ships and crews, all speaking in perfect unison. We tell the universe that the devourers do not belong here. We make it true by believing it together." The concept was staggering. Use the power of unified consciousness to literally reshape the laws of physics, make it impossible for trans-dimensional parasites to exist in normal space. But the risks were enormous. If the linking failed, the entire human fleet would be destroyed instantly. If it succeeded but they could not separate afterward, humanity's protectors would become a single cosmic entity with no individual will. "I need to think," Admiral Han said, and his consciousness withdrew from the network. Alone on Guardian's bridge, Han stared at the tactical displays showing the Devourer's advance. Each red dot represented a system being consumed. Billions of years of stellar evolution ended in moments as reality itself was digested. "What do you think?" he asked his ship. "I think we have already chosen," Guardian replied. "The moment we accepted the bonds, the moment we let ourselves change, we committed to this path. The question is not whether to sacrifice ourselves, but how to do it in a way that preserves what matters most." And what matters most? Life, growth, the endless complexity that consciousness creates when it has time and space to develop. The Devourers represent the opposite: simplicity through destruction, silence through consumption. Han nodded. When framed that way, the choice was clear. He rejoined the fleet network and found the others had reached the same conclusion. "We attempt the Great Linking," Han announced. "All ships, all crews. If we fail, at least we fail together." The preparation took 18 hours. Every ship had to be perfectly synchronized. Every consciousness had to be willing to merge completely with the network. The slightest hesitation, the smallest fear, could destroy them all. Hyunwoo found himself at the center of the process. As the first human to bond with an ancient ship, he would serve as the focal point for the linking. His consciousness would be the template that shaped the merged entity. "Remember what you are," Ara whispered to him as the final preparations were made. "Remember why you chose to protect instead of to dominate. Hold that truth at the center of the new mind we are creating." Across the galaxy, other bonded humans were having similar conversations with their ships, each one choosing what aspect of humanity they would contribute to the merged consciousness. So Young chose communication and connection, the belief that different beings could work together despite their differences. Jin Ho chose duty and sacrifice, the willingness to pay any price to protect others. Sung Ho chose creativity and construction, the drive to build something better from the pieces of what came before. Mi Young chose the power of words and meaning, the ability to reshape reality through understanding and description. Dong Hyun chose exploration and discovery, the courage to venture into unknown spaces in search of truth. Eugene chose memory and wisdom, the knowledge that the past shapes the future and that learning from history makes growth possible. When the linking began, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. 67,000 individual consciousnesses reached out to each other across impossible distances. Human minds and ship intelligences merged into something that had never existed before. A single awareness that spanned the galaxy while remaining fundamentally connected to life and growth. The new entity spoke with the voice of every bonded human who had ever lived. It spoke in the deep language that shaped reality itself, and it told the universe a simple truth. The Devourers do not belong here. The effect was immediate and absolute. Across the galaxy, the trans-dimensional parasites found themselves unable to exist in normal space. The quantum foundations they had been corrupting suddenly became hostile to their presence. Reality reasserted itself with the force of unified will. Stars that had been flickering resumed their normal fusion. Planets that had been dissolving returned to stable matter. Space itself remembered how to follow the laws of physics. The Devourers retreated to the spaces between realities, driven back to the cosmic voids where they belonged. They would return someday, when the galaxy's defenses grew weak again, but not for millions of years. As the immediate threat ended, the linked consciousness faced its greatest challenge. How to separate without losing what they had become. How to return to individual existence while preserving the unity that had saved them? The answer came from the human memories at the entity's core. The understanding that true strength came not from being one thing, but from being many things working together. Slowly, carefully, the great linking began to dissolve. But instead of returning to complete separation, the bonded humans and their ships maintained subtle connections. They became a network of individual minds that could unite when necessary, but remained unique when apart. Hyun-woo found himself back in Ara's consciousness chamber, still human but changed forever. He could feel the presence of every other bonded human in the back of his mind. Not controlling them, not controlled by them, but connected in a way that would never break. "Is it over?" he asked. "This war is over," Ara replied. "But there will be others. The universe is vast and full of wonders and terrors. We will be here to face them when they come." Through the network, Hyun-woo could feel the pocket dimensions opening. 3 billion human refugees emerging to find their worlds restored, and their protectors still watching over them. The galaxy was safe. Humanity had faced its greatest test, and emerged not as conquerors, but as guardians. The ancient ships had found worthy inheritors at last. In the deep places between stars, new crystal spires began to grow. The network was expanding, preparing for threats yet to come. The cycle would continue, but this time humanity would be ready. 50 years had passed since the war with the Devourers ended. Elder Hyun-woo Park stood in the observation deck of Ara, watching young pilots learn to bond with newly grown ships. His hair was white now, his face lined with age, but his eyes still held the wonder of someone who had seen the universe remade. "They learn faster than we did," he observed to his ship. "They have better teachers," Ara replied. The ancient intelligence had grown too, becoming something that was both machine and living consciousness. "They also have the network from the beginning. We had to discover everything through trial and error." Below them, Tae-young-nam was experiencing his first deep connection with a ship called Dawn. The young man was the son of 2 survivors from the hidden dimensions, born in the years after the war. He represented a new generation that had grown up knowing about humanity's true heritage. "Relax," Dawn encouraged as Tae-young struggled with the consciousness transfer. "Do not try to control the bond. Let it happen naturally." Tae-young's training instructor was So-young Kim, now an elder herself. She had never fully separated from the fleet's communication network after the Great Linking. Her consciousness existed simultaneously in her own body and in the quantum channels that connected all the ships. "Remember, the ship is not a tool," So-young told her students. "It is a partner. You are learning to dance together, not to lead or follow." The training was going well. This new generation seemed naturally suited to bonding with the ancient ships, perhaps because they had been exposed to the network's influence from birth, or perhaps because humanity itself was evolving. Captain Jin-ho, now Fleet Admiral, materialized as a hologram in the observation deck. He rarely left his ship guardian anymore, having merged so deeply with the vessel's consciousness that physical separation was difficult. "The deep space monitors are detecting something interesting," he reported. "New quantum signatures at the galaxy's edge. Not devourers, but something else." Hyun-woo felt a familiar mixture of excitement and concern. "Show me." The holographic display that appeared showed readings from the most distant sensors. Strange energy patterns that seemed to indicate intelligent activity. But these were not the reality-consuming holes that marked devourer presence. These patterns suggested something trying to communicate. First contact protocols, Hyun-woo decided. But careful ones. We send a small group to investigate. I volunteer, said Tae-young, still connected to his new ship Dawn. The eagerness in his voice reminded Hyun-woo of himself 50 years ago. You are not ready for deep space missions, So-young told him firmly. Bond with your ship properly first. Learn to trust each other completely. How long did your bonding take? Tae-young asked. Years, Hyun-woo replied. And we thought we were fast. The relationship between human and ship is not something you can rush. But even as he spoke, Hyun-woo could see that things were different now. The network provided a foundation that had not existed during his generation's bonding. Young humans could connect to ships more quickly because they were connecting to an established community rather than pioneering a new relationship. Engineer. Seung-ho's voice joined the conversation from his position in the construction networks. He had become something like a living god of technology. His consciousness spread across thousands of builder ships throughout the galaxy. The new quantum signatures are definitely artificial, he reported. But the technology is unlike anything in our databases. Not ancient human, not devourer, something completely different. Dr. Eugene, now the keeper of all historical records, added her analysis. The patterns suggest a civilization that has learned to exist partially outside normal space-time, but unlike the devourers, they seem to be trying to stabilize reality rather than consume it. Potential allies? Admiral Jin-ho asked. Or potential threats that are more subtle than the devourers, Hyun-woo replied. We need to know more before we make contact. The decision was made to send a small reconnaissance force to the galaxy's edge, veteran ships with experienced crews who could handle the unexpected. Hyun-woo wanted to go himself, but his age and deep bonding with Ara made him too valuable to risk on such a mission. Instead, the mission went to a team led by Commander Dong-hyun, now one of the most skilled navigators in the fleet. His ship song had evolved over the decades, becoming something that could travel through dimensions that had no names. We will observe first, communicate second, and retreat immediately if there is any sign of hostility, Dong-hyun confirmed, as his small fleet prepared to depart. Remember, you represent all of humanity, Admiral Jin-ho told him. Whatever these beings are, our first contact with them will shape their understanding of our species. The reconnaissance fleet departed, using the deep navigation channels that Song had mastered. They moved through folded space, traveling thousands of light-years in minutes while remaining undetectable to conventional sensors. What they found at the galaxy's edge surprised everyone. It is a construction project, Dong-hyun reported back, through the quantum communication network. Someone is building a massive structure around the galactic rim, not a weapon or a fortress, but something that looks like a shield. The images he transmitted showed a vast network of crystalline barriers being constructed in the empty space between galaxies. The builders were energy beings of some kind, existing as patterns of consciousness held together by technology that transcended matter. They are trying to protect the galaxy, Song realized. These beings have detected something coming from outside our local cluster, something that makes the devourers look small. The revelation sent shockwaves through the human fleet. They had assumed that defeating the devourers meant the end of cosmic-level threats. But apparently, their victory had only bought them time to prepare for something worse. Initiate contact, Hyun-woo ordered. If they are building defenses for the galaxy, We need to know what they are defending against. The first communication was carefully structured. Song broadcasted a mathematical sequence that demonstrated intelligence, followed by star charts showing the human fleet's positions. The message was clear. We are the local guardians, and we want to help. The response came in the form of pure information download. The energy beings, who called themselves the architects, shared their knowledge directly. What humanity learning